Hello and welcome to Startup Hack. Today we are going to talk about running C# in the browser with Blazor. So let's jump right in. Make sure to check out the link down below because we always provide the code samples that you can pull down and follow along so you can see in our project. Do you want to earn $100,000 a year? Do you want to become a software developer within just 3 months? With our amazing course and awesome tutors, you never have to worry about getting stuck. We help students to learn skills that companies want to hire. We are Startup Hack. Don't forget to subscribe our channel. So let's get started. Alright, let's start with the architecture of Blazor. The most common misconception of programmers have about Blazor is that their C# code is compiled into WebAssembly, then sent to the browser and then executed. This approach isn't out of the question, and the creators of Blazor have hinted that they may try this technique in the future, but it isn't the way Blazor works today. Right now, the only part of Blazor that uses WebAssembly is the runtime. All of the other ingredients in your application are compiled to intermediate language, the bytecode standard for .NET since 2000. In other words, a Blazor application is compiled in exactly the same way as any other .NET application before it's distributed. So how does it all come together? When you visit a web page that uses Blazor, the page begins by downloading a scaled down .NET runtime. Then it downloads your application and any other .NET library your application uses, all in their native IL. Finally, the Blazor runtime executes at the IL. So there's no requirement for you to write server-side code in ASP.NET or for you to write any server-side code at all. All you need to do is compile your Blazor app and put the files on a web server. You might think that the Blazor architecture seems a little bit like putting a virtual machine for .NET inside another virtual machine for JavaScript. You wouldn't be completely wrong. The difference is that WebAssembly allows the .NET runtime to avoid the overhead of JavaScript, especially its cycles of parsing, compiling, and optimizing. In theory, the performance of interpreted C# code in the browser should be good. After all, WebAssembly has already been used to port emulators and 3D games to the browsers. However, we can expect some sort of startup tax when the application begins because it needs to download the Blazor runtime. We'll look more close Blazor performance after we build a simple page. So there's a lot of boilerplate in a new Blazor project. If you haven't programmed with ASP.NET Razor, you may feel a bit lost. The name Blazor comes from taking the ASP.NET server-side Razor model and adding B for browser. Here's expanded view of the whole Blazor application. So here's example. So thankfully, it's pretty easy to sort out the clutter. The next sections take you on an abbreviated tour. So starting at www-root, the www-root folder holds the traditional web server files, okay, and the HTML pages, CSS style sheets, images, and other resources. The index.html is the entry point for your application. Nothing happens until someone launches a web browser and navigates to this page. If you peek inside index.html, so here's what you will see. The sample web page uses the arguably old-fashioned bootstrap library of styles, mostly to ensure that you can write a reasonably attractive Blazor demo without any extra style sheet fiddling. Interestingly, index.html doesn't use any JavaScript libraries except for one. That's blazor.webassembly.js, the script that downloads the runtime and kicks off the whole process. You should also notice the app section. This holds the initial content, the stuff Blazor shows when the page first loads before it's had a chance to download the runtime. There's a noticeable delay here, so it makes sense to replace the loading message with some sort of animated GIF or app specific information. By designing every Blazor app has just one HTML file associated with. That's because Blazor apps are best designed as single page web apps. They have the illusion of loading the browser doesn't perform any real navigation. If it did, you need to reinitialize the Blazor runtime all over again on each new page, which would be performance nightmare. So www.root shows how your page launches Blazor, but where does Blazor hand off to your application code? The boilerplate is in a tiny bit auto-generated code in the program.cs and startup.cs file. You can take a look at these files. But there's no need to touch their code. The real starting point is the Blazor index.razor page. Alright, let's come to pages and layouts. Blazor uses its own routing system based on virtual pages. Usually the first page is index.razor, but you are free to create others as you require them. The starter Blazor project includes two more pages, counter.razor and fetchdata.razor, that are just examples. There's nothing special about these names, and there's no need to keep these files. So what goes on in a razor page? So here's a quick look at index.razor. The @page here slash directive defines the path that this page handles. The other words, index.razor is the root page. If you don't ask for a specific .razor page, you end up here. Click on one of the navigation links in the sample application. So here we can run the application. You will see so here's the sample application. If you click on here, you can see the whole other directives, page directive, different page directive. The rest of the index.razor is ordinary HTML. So here's the example, ordinary HTML. Okay, so with a couple of oddities. First of all the survey prompt, so element is a placeholder. It tells Blazor to insert the content of survey prompt.razor file, which is a basic block of here. So with the survey link, separating the survey content in the separate file makes it possible to reuse it on another page. You'll also notice what isn't on the index.razor page. So the menu, the header, the sidebar is not in this page. These details defined in another template called main layout.razor. So here's example. You will see the nav menu over here, the body. Okay, so every page has the opportunity to use layout. The index.razor page uses main layout.razor because that's the default that's set in the app.razor file. However, you could also pick something different by adding the layout attribute at the top of the page like this. Hover. The main layout razor page has the div element that carved the page up into two columns. It also has reference to the nav menu, which unsurprisingly grabs the menu markup from the nav menu.razor file. Finally, the main layout razor file has also special body placeholder. This is where it puts the rest of the content for the page. So if your application starts at index.razor, Blazor grabs the main layout, injects the menu in the first column, and then injects the index.razor content in the second column. Once you have sorted through these connections, you're left with a highly composite modular system. You haven't dug through all the details, but you have seen enough to get the truly interesting part. Okay, now I have decided to give Blazor a whirl with a very simple example. I choose a demonstration of the infamous Magic 8 Ball. Building the 8 Ball app wasn't quite as easy as I expected. First, the workflow of Blazor code doesn't resemble vanilla JavaScript because your code can't directly access to the HTML DOM. This is current limitation of WebAssembly, so it doesn't make sense to casually grab elements and change their properties. You could do that with the layer of JavaScript intro, but it gets ugly fast. You need to add an extra layer of JavaScript functions to call, which is distinctly crafty. Instead, Blazor has its own mechanism that you can work through to update the page rather than using a control model. Blazor favors a system of data binding like Razor and many modern JavaScript frameworks. That means that the easiest way to get a value in a control in your web page is to compute it into a code, set a variable, and bind that variable in your page. So here's a simple example. If you have and you want to handle it with click Blazor code, you add a special on-click attribute. Blazor uses the add symbol as a marker when it intervenes in any ordinary HTML. So here's example. Okay. So now you need to confirm C# function as 8 ball. Okay, you put that in a code block here. Okay, so and you put the code block at the end of your .razor file after the marker. So here's example. But just triggering the code isn't enough. You also need somewhere to display the result. Here we add a paragraph to hold the in the H1 we will be showing the answer. Now as 8 ball function has the simple job set the answer variable so it appears in the page. Blazor notices automatically, so there's no need to refresh anything. So now we will be going to run this application. So I have already run it. Right, so here's the example. So when I ask this any random question, it will take some time and give me the answer. Alright, let us check the performance of this application. So when I run this application and check on the network tab in Chrome with disable cache, so as you can see, all the files are loaded very fastly. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned how to create Blazor app. So don't forget to subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon for latest updates. To joining our course, you can simply go to our website called startuphack.com. Thank you.